everyone. Tonight on Fired Up Conservative Talk, I'm your host, William Del Pilar, the conservative Latino. This is not your polite, pre approved Republican panel show. Tonight, we're going global with Operation Epic Fury. Iran Supreme Leader taken out, missiles going dark, Grand Ayatollahs calling for global jihad, and ordinary Iranians dancing in the streets and thanking Trump and Israel, while our own media melts down. Then we'll bring you home with the big story of the week outside of Iran, and that is Kristi Noem getting bounced from DHS after, or rather, despite historic border numbers. She's being replaced by Markwayne Mullin. Whose mama's going to name somebody with two first names? Markwayne Mullin. Markwayne. Anyway, he's a guy who was tough enough to object in 2020, but somehow found a way to defend the system on J6 and throw Ashley Babbitt under the bus. Yes, I'm not 100% behind the man. If you're tired of being managed, framed, and gaslit by the left and by our own betters in the party, you're in the right place. We are going to have an old friend of the show come back. Tonight's guest is someone I had the pleasure of meeting across the table at dinner, wondering if we were going to have to throw down with the Democrat or leftist or progressive, whatever you want to call them, activists that were protesting in front of the restaurant we were eating at. We're honored and proud to have Randy Burholtz with us tonight. And Randy isn't your typical party official. He's a San Diego biotech lawyer, a two-time cancer survivor, and a Rhodes Scholar who studied at Oxford, and the former secretary of the California Republican Party, who helped steer the CAGOP through some of its roughest waters. From UCSD's Rady School of Management to the courtroom and the grassroots, he's been in the trenches on election integrity with groups like Election Integrity Project California and Judicial Watch, fighting for clean roads, secure ballots, and faith in our system. He's taught business and biotech law, clerked for a federal appeals judge, run for local office, and he's still in the fight today. So when Randy talks about how Republicans can win in California, he's not theorizing, he's lived it. He will be on with us a little bit later in the show. And I don't have a big introduction. Why? Well, he's the G-Man. He's our weekly panelist guest here. So let's bring the G-Man in.
I should call myself the G Wayne, because when you add Wayne to your name, you just sound more manly and tough, don't you?
The guy's a tough dude. We're going to talk about him a little bit later, but he is the guy who made his bones defending Pete Hegseth when he called Tim Kaine or one of those Democrat senators pretty much a drunk to their face. How many of y'all come here to vote back? As he's looking at that senator, and he's ex-MMA fighter. He's a tough guy, but I have a couple of issues with him, and we'll talk about that. All right, G, let's welcome our guest and get our show going. And let us welcome here, Randy. You missed your great intro. I had a great intro for
I was
you
listening to it, so
at the beginning there. You know, Randy's a busy guy, people. So we're truly appreciative of him being here to join us on the show. Rhodes Scholar, lawyer. He's done some very impressive things in life. Randy, I wish people like you could be around us common folk more often, because that's a great role model, your whole career and what you've done. You know, so we appreciate all the work you've done, and we appreciate you joining us here.
oh, thank you.
All right, guys. First topic on hand, and I've got to dig it up here. But Tucker Carlson, and in fact, I just got it here. I want y'all to respond. As you guys know, the mainstream media, Democrats, they're trying to say that MAGA is in a war. We aren't, but our influencers are doing their best to separate us from Trump's agenda and what they want us to follow. Tucker is one of those who's gone south. Randy, you haven't been on our show recently. I believe Tucker has daddy issues. Tucker made a 180 after his father died. His father was a staunch Israel supporter, pro-Zionist, etc., etc. He loved his father. And as soon as his father died, he went a 180. And I firmly believe he's got daddy issues, just like a girl has daddy issues. So he's gone on this if he's not an anti-Semite, he's doing a good job of making people believe he is. And I'm not saying that in a mean way attack. Annette, who is a big Tucker supporter, I asked her, go, you can see why people would think he's an anti-Semite. And even she acknowledged, yes, I can. So I'm not sure if you are, but he's kind of been splitting the party up, and he's very tight with JD Vance. And his son works for JD Vance at the White House, or wherever, JD Vance works at the White House. So his ties are deep in. They say he's met with President Trump the last 3 times. Trump's been silent on Tucker. Well, Trump finally came out in an interview with Jonathan Karl and said this. You guys can see that, I assume. Let me get a little bit slightly
Too
bigger.
small.
That's what
Yeah,
we're
there we
doing.
go.
There we go. So Jonathan Karl, in a lengthy conversation just now, President Trump hit back at Tucker Carlson, who called the Iran war absolutely disgusting and evil. Tucker has lost his way, Trump told me. I knew that a long time ago, and he's not MAGA. MAGA is saving our country. MAGA is making our country great again. MAGA is America first, and Tucker is none of those things. And Tucker is really not smart enough to understand that. And then this is what kind of gets me about Tucker. He let Oliver Darcy's apparatus status.news interview him, and he said Oliver Darcy went on Blue Sky. New Tucker Carlson responds to Donald Trump after the president said that he has lost his way and is not MAGA. There are times I get annoyed with Trump, right now definitely included. Carlson tells Status News, but I'll always love him no matter what he says about him. Let's go to G first here on this one, guys. G, you only because right now I'm not sure if you're aware of the wars, but G has been following this with me. G, when you see that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is all centered around Iran, right? And you could make the argument that if I had to land on what MAGA is and how Iran fits into that, I would have to say that being anti-interventionist is MAGA. So I would I would have to say that Trump is actually fulfilling the non-MAGA part of this with his Iran attack, which, by the way, I'm conflicted about the Iran attack. We'll get into that, I know, but it's a necessary thing to do, but I don't want to be interventionist either. So I can see how Trump can also be conflicted, and he errs on the side of let's take this threat out. Tucker is going to be anti-interventionist, period, right? You look at what he said about Ukraine, you look at what he said about Gaza. Now he's actually the more consistent one, I would argue, in terms of let's not interfere with Iran. It's a dangerous move to say, oh, Iranians, they'll stay in their lane and never drop a nuke on Israel, which I know eventually they will with the current leadership that's been there. So where I depart from Tucker, and we talked about this last week, is some of his comments about Jews and Israel and racial lines and genetics and all that. I'm like, come on, man! Like,
Well, hold on,
do you really want to take the caricature of the swastika?
Fill the audience up. Fill the audience up into what you're referring. You're referring to the Huckabee interviews, in case Randy doesn't know. The Huckabee.
Yeah, so there's the Huckabee interview where he I'll be fair. So he took a blurb out of the interview, and that was the promo where he said, should Israel go all the way to Iran and take over all that land? And Huckabee said something to the effect of, and I might not have this exact, but yeah, I'm fine with that. But then in the actual interview, he actually doesn't say that he's okay with it. He just makes a different case. But that's the little snippet that Tucker took out and made part of the hook, so people would tune into that. But later in the interview, Tucker, I believe it was the same interview, Tucker starts talking about whether the people in Israel are real Jews by genetics and blood, or whether they're transplants from other parts of the world, and they don't really trace their ancestry back to the original Jews. That part, like, look, if I want to be called American, like, you could say I don't derive any ancestry from the original Europeans that came here, but I'm American through and through. End of story. If you're going to question that because of my genetics, then screw you. And so I would say Tucker needs to lay off that line of questioning.
So what you're saying is Tucker's kind of veered off the wayward path there.
Randy, in terms of that.
Granny, I have no clue. People will mock and say anything Stein is Jewish, but are you Jew? I don't know. Are you Jewish?
I am not, but a lot of people with my name are. So
Okay, gotcha. Well, I wanted to ask
no,
in case you were to get your thoughts
no,
as a
no.
Jewish man, but as a non-Jewish man, what are your thoughts?
Well, no, it's interesting because I'm in the the National Republican Jewish Caucus, and I'm in there because they invited me because they probably thought I was Jewish. But I like being in any group that invites me, and I love, you know, guys. We just have to realize Tucker's an entertainer. He's a commentator. And he makes money. He does. He makes money off of being controversial. He makes money off of being relevant, right? He was on Fox for a long time, and now, and I mean, now, he's on independent radio and the like, but he's trying to stay relevant. And as far as Tucker being MAGA, let's face it, Tucker doesn't want us to be involved in unnecessary. I think he would put the word unnecessary wars in there, right? And I think I think a lot of us were saying, Joe Biden and the Democrats got us into a situation in the world where we can not act anymore. And the Iranians, we have to start listening to people when they tell us they hate us, when they tell us they're going to wipe us out and wipe out Israel, when they tell us they're going to use the bomb. We should start listening to them, right?
Right.
But this time, Donald Trump wants unconditional surrender, and good on him. We got him on the ropes, and frankly, I'm say finish him off right now, and let's get a regime in there that's more favorable to us. But guys, did you ever think in our lifetime that we would be doing this? Did you ever think in our lifetime that we would have invaded, Venezuela, or that we're threatening Cuba? I was just watching something about the Cuban Missile Crisis recently. Kennedy didn't have didn't have the guts to do it. Reagan didn't do it. Donald J. Trump, is doing stuff that we didn't think he would do.
Right. It's as a child, let me give you my thoughts on Tucker, and then because this is part of the Iran.
Yeah.
But as a child, I did believe that, Randy. It's when I became a young adult and I saw, oh, if they mess with the American, they're not going to help us. As a kid, I always thought they were going to protect the Americans, and now I believe that is back in play. But as far as Tucker is not MAGA. I think, and gee, I'm not saying you're a simpleton, but I think a lot of MAGAs are simpletons thinking that we can isolate ourselves.
Right. And I don't believe that either. But yeah.
Right. And Trump has not gotten us into any wars. I mean, I think it's safe to say Venezuela was a Call of Duty, a modern warfare, a Splinter Cell op. And the reason I'm saying games is, it only happens in games. 40 minutes in, 40 minutes. In fact, games are longer. 40 minutes in, 40 minutes out. And you took out a dictator. There were no boots on the ground. I think in Iran, he's got a clear plan, or he's got a clear framework of a plan that means no boots on the ground. My problem with the Tuckers of the world, with the Dave Smith, a libertarian moron at time who is extremely intelligent, they believe that human nature will always react a certain way. As Randy said, if they say death to America, if they say the caliphate, if they told Thomas Jefferson, why are you attacking our ships? We have no issues with your people because you're infidels. And the Quran tells us we can't. You start believing that. And because I was expecting Annette tonight, she couldn't join us. And the problem is people want to look at 1979. New regime took over in 1979. They could have started out, this is who we are, leave us the hell alone. Instead, they took our hostages, and they used that as a launching pad, and they've killed thousands. We're going to get into that. But my point is, Tucker's wrong. We cannot, if we live as an isolationist country, we're eventually going to be surrounded by the caliphate, people backing that up, the Chinese, and the Russians, and the U.S. will be an island unto itself with Mexico and every country below us controlled or in bed with bad actors. As Randy already alluded to, this is an opportunity in a lifetime. And this was not precipitated because of Donald Trump. This was precipitated because of October 7th. That is when the dominoes began. Wait, it's been so long. Wait, that was 3 years ago?
23.
Yeah, and that was a domino. Who would have ever thought that terrorist attack would eventually bring the downfall of what we hope is the caliphate, the nation that leads the caliphate. So Tucker is a moron, an idiot, a sublime scum because he has millions of followers who are lapping him up. And in the big picture, he's hurting us. The reason I'm so harsh on him, we've got midterms coming up. We need every vote. Now, he may only have a couple million followers. You combine him with Candace, another couple million, Alex Jones. Now, these people are on the outlier, but we need those votes. And they have the potential to completely destroy that. So I think Trump stepping out is telling MAGA it's time to separate yourself from Tucker. But more importantly, guys, final question, we're going to move into the main topics here, is J.D. Vance is closer to Tucker than a mama and her newborn. He is very close to Tucker. His kid works in J.D. Vance's White House or whatever, the VP. He works in that arena. Very close. This is phase one. This is the second lob in 1 week. Earlier, he sat there and said Megyn Kelly and Tucker really didn't know what they were talking about. So this is the second time he's mentioned Tucker. I think the separation, the divorce may be underway. How could that affect us in the midterms? Or is this much ado about nothing? Randy.
Tucker's a commentator. He has a following. As you mentioned, the Tucker, son, and with the J.D. Vance connection, but J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are, they're 1 and 2 in the country, and so, I don't think it's going to have as much of effect as Tucker wants it to have. I mean, when it comes down to it, J.D. Vance's future, really is in Donald Trump's hands, and so, so. I just don't, sometimes as Republicans, we need to get with the program, right? And the program now is Donald Trump is in power. You can question Donald Trump, you can question his secretaries, but this is the Trump administration. We've been wanting this to come for years and years. Donald Trump is the one who made it happen, not Tucker Carlson. He fought against us a lot of times. So look, Tucker, get with the program, and if you want to stay relevant, talk about Donald Trump's accomplishments. If you want to be a, Trump basher, why don't you wait until after the general election?
I agree. Just to add to the point, he's what Randy was saying, he's a commentator. He wants to stay relevant. Tucker's actually been fired by every major network. We've actually, for the most part, MAGA has only agreed with Tucker when he got his show on Fox. So Tucker's a career of over 20 some odd years has actually only had a window of about 2 to 3 years of MAGA love. And I think he's now using that to go back to the old Tucker in ways that hurt us. But do you think he could hurt us in the midterms?
I mean, if he wants to keep this an issue and he wants the Democrats to win, and basically all of his principles are Republican principles. So if he wants to keep it going, but I'll tell you, political memory is short. I mean, a lot of people barely remember what happened in January. It's March now. So you're talking October, November. And, people in October and November will forget what happened over the summer. So political memory is short unless Tucker just goes all out on a media offensive against Trump and the Republicans. I just don't see it affecting the midterms much at all. What's going to affect it is, Trump's actions, the economy, how Iran goes. That's what's going to affect it.
Good point. And I agree. And I agree with both your points. I just think the reality is when the Hogan, MAGA, Kelly, all them, you come in, there's 10 million followers. Now, will they all follow them blindly? No. But as Randy, as you said, you need to get with the program and look at his accomplishments. Speaking of accomplishments, let's get into President Trump announced on March 5th, 2026, the removal of Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary after 13 months. Now, those 13 months, that time period marked by historic border enforcement gains, but overshadowed by controversies. Trump is naming Senator Markwayne Mullin, the man with 2 first names, Markwayne, as her replacement effective March 31st, 2026. Noem transitions to special envoy for, quote, the shield of the Americas, unquote, tonight at 9 p.m. Starring, guys, a title, The Shield of the Americas. It's a new Western Hemisphere security initiative that I believe deals with a lot of the Latin American countries, and it will focus on dismantling cartels and enhancing regional cooperation with the summit planned Saturday in Doral, Florida. So the swift leadership shift underscores the administration's determination to sustain aggressive immigration enforcement without distractions from internal drama or operational missteps. So yesterday afternoon, today's the 6th, Donald Trump dropped the bombshell on Truth Social. And just for the audience here, I will show you the bomb he dropped. Donald Trump does not drop one or two sentences. He drops letters on Truth Social. But in essence, I am pleased to announce that the highly respected senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Markwayne, yada, 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 is going to become the new secretary. Gives a little bit about him, how he's MAGA, and then he thinks and talks about the tribal communities because he's Cherokee, etc. But that was how the announcement was made, guys. It wasn't a formal press conference. It was this Truth Social note being dropped. My first question to you guys: we said on the show, Randy, either last week or the week before, we actually talked about this. And we said that Kristi Noem needed to be sidelined, and we even put out a clip on it that turned out to be one of our more popular ones. Now the unthinkable has happened in her eyes. She's out and Mullin is in. Is this purely an accountability move for the Minnesota shootings, the ad fiasco? We'll get into that if you guys want, and internal chaos? Or is Trump also sending a message that no one is bigger than the border agenda and no one is bigger than Trump? Randy, let's get your thoughts first.
I'd say all the above. Look, I met Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem didn't progress on the presidential side because she comes from a small state where she could pretty much do what she wants. She's a rough and tumble cowgirl,
Yes.
type of person. Trump knew that going in. The president attracts some very interesting characters, and he attracts strong characters. But the problem is, what the president doesn't like, from what I can see, is dishonesty or disloyalty to him.
Right.
Look, the president's been married a bunch of, a couple of times and probably had affairs and everything else. But
Stormy.
Kristi Noem, one thing I would say about the White House that I would improve in the Office of Personnel Management is just friggin' do your research on people beforehand. Get them up and down, know what you're getting into. This is a woman who was a governor, and governors have, they're always, running for stuff. And I think she ran for the presidency, I think at one point, but she has her own way. I mean, I thought the cowgirl stuff and her fancy suits that she wore and the hats that she wore, I thought it was amateurish. I thought it really put down the position. It sort of belittled the position, I think. And sometimes in that position, you don't want to. She put herself out in front, and she really, and I think as Senator John Kennedy just recently said, you had this $220 million campaign. It was really about you. It was boosting your image. Her on a, on a horse and everything. What the hell? I mean, come on. We're trying to get, people who are in this country out of the country. And we don't want unnecessary attention-seeking people. And Kristi Noem is an attention-seeking person. Donald Trump knew that. He sort of liked that about her. And now I don't say chicken's coming home to roost, but when you put your faith in people like this who are out there, who are fighters, they're going to sometimes go against the grain and not go according to the game plan. But I just want to mention one thing though. That was a setup. It was a setup. Her speaking before the Senate and the Republican senators questioning her was a setup. That
Really?
that was intentional. It was intentional when they brought up her affair. It was all intentional.
Why?
I think it was intentional to get her out quickly. her husband was sitting right behind her. She didn't mention anything about, she tried to poo-poo the affair. That was intentional. That's what I don't say that's what we do in politics, but when we want to get one of our own out, that's sort of the things you do. And John Kennedy,
You're
yeah,
saying the Republicans set her up. I thought you meant
yeah.
she was part of the setup, meaning she
No, no, no,
no,
no, no,
no,
no,
no.
no, no, no,
No,
no.
that was
That
their way. That was
yeah,
okay, I get you. I get you.
yeah, that was definitely set up. So, and President Trump has been thinking about this for a while, So look, she played her hand. She played it the wrong way. She played it with the guy, the guy, her chief of staff, who I don't know how the hell that guy's still standing, and so
Corey
people brought it.
Lewandowski, you mean?
Yeah. People brought affairs up. They do that when they really try to belittle you. So look, Donald Trump then says, "Okay, you're fired, but we're going to give you this other role." He should have said, "I'm going to put her in this other role." And I'm bringing somebody else in. So everybody knew he was firing her, which is,
Right,
and
right.
look, why did he fire? I don't think he fired her because of the two deaths. I think he truly fired her because her personality was bigger than the position.
Exactly. Now, for the audience out there, what Randy is referring to, it was a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that took place this past week, and she faced bipartisan grilling, which goes in hand with Randy saying she was set up. And the plot was a $220 million ad campaign. Now, I'm sure everybody's seen it. I watch a lot of these app televisions free, and where you get 3 minutes of the same commercial, and I saw her commercials over and over, and it was a good campaign. I never saw the ones with the horse until today. I went and researched them, and sure enough, beautiful shot of the scenery. And for the first like 1/3 of the commercial, it's her and a horse riding along, and it's clearly done from Kristi Noem, candidate, president, 2020
Exactly.
style, so that is what came up. But the campaign technically was urging voluntary deportation, which in defense of her is what the commercial was talking as she walked. But it was clearly the focal point as I'm the one who's kicking these people out mentality. And it aired mostly in English, and she was prominently featured. And this also drew issues because it was DHS used emergency powers to steer the large contracts to a firm tied to one of her staunch allies that helped get her elected for governor. And more fuel to the fire, she told Congress that Trump knew and approved the blitz. However, Trump later said he never knew anything about it. I've got my 2 cents I'm going to give on that, G. But bouncing off what Randy said, G, did Trump cut Noam loose because she was putting herself ahead of Trump and immigration with the ad blitz, or because she piled up too many self-inflicted wounds? Minnesota calling them domestic terrorists. In her defense, I agree. Technically, that's what they are by definition. Those type of comments, the staff issues, and the affair with Corey Lewandowski. Before you answer, G, real quick, Randy, I believe Corey Lewandowski is still around because he's the one who got Trump on the scene. He was his campaign manager first and
Yeah.
foremost that 1 year. And as you said, that's the type of loyalty that Trump will never forget. Without Corey Lewandowski, we may not have Trump today. And that's just my guess as to why he's still around right now. Plus, he's out of Trump's hair. He's with her. Gee,
Well,
your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, before I answer the question, when I went through airport security, there's a video of her at TSA line over and over again, and she's talking about, airport security and all that. So her face was plastered everywhere, and millions of people saw it daily. Um, what happened here? I think in the end, like, okay, so I think Trump could overlook all the little missteps, right? The Minnesota shootings and all that. I think when she became the story over deportations and enforcing immigration law, that's just a bridge too far. Like, all of the other stuff put aside, if you're doing the job, who cares? Until you become the story, now you endanger the mission, right? So there's if you guys remember Coney 2012, and they wanted to try to get this African general who's getting boys into his army, and there was a charity that started here in San Diego, but then the owner of the charity became a bigger story than the actual thing that he was trying to push, and the whole movement fell apart, right? And so that's another good example of you don't want to be the story, just do your job. And I think that's why in the end, none of these little things matter. Trump was just trying to say, look, you're becoming the story. We got to stop this. Now, he gave an equally prestigious, or in my views, looks equally prestigious, the Shield of America's job, and that is still a high profile position. It's just, okay, look, we got to shuffle because we can't be talking about Kristi Noem. We got to be talking about deporting illegal immigrants and keeping our country safe.
Kind of a baseball player in a slump. You put him in a different part of the lineup, try to
Yep.
kickstart him.
Yep.
Randy, you wanted to comment, I think, on Lewandowski and what I said, but real quick, uh, do you think it? Actually, so tell me. It sounded like you want to comment on Lewandowski. We'll go with that
No,
first.
no, look, the British have a term, putting somebody out to Coventry, which means you send them out to some, to some position, you know, where they can do, a little harm. But you're right. I mean, Trump's very loyal to people, you know, and my understanding is they know about this affair for years, but from my understanding, it was going on for a while. But to bring it up on top of everything else,
By a
just so God give
Republican.
it, yeah, yeah, it just a Republican, with another Republican. And look, there is and I can't say too much personally because I'm, I can't say what I'm under, but there's another secretary who's on who's in Trump's administration who happens to be a woman who happens to have accusations thrown at her. I thought she was going to be the first person in the cabinet removed, and she still may be, because there's an investigation. But Kristi Noem, I think Trump really likes Kristi Noem. I think, my understanding, he was calling around Congress and the Senate and everything, asking as to whether
What to
he should
do?
fire her. You know, and, I think, like G was saying, she got bigger than this. She got bigger than the mission.
I agree.
And he's still keeping her on the team, as you guys said. And Trump always starts out with, like, he starts out with a person, then he builds a organization around them. So it looks like it'll be a substantive position too. So
So real quick before we shift to another portion of the Christian Noem topic, I want your thoughts because we talked about this last week. But the first for both of you, she was careful not to say she did. She didn't sit there and deny the affair. She's under oath. And I believe her when she said, "Oh, President Trump knew. We went over the legalese and all this." I believe that. She said that under oath. He knew. And Trump came out and said, "Oh, I didn't know." I don't believe Trump at all. And I'm a big Trump supporter, but I calling it like I see it. And I think that probably had a hand in the bigger picture. I like her. She didn't lie, but I've got to deny it. You know, gonna move her. I mean, everything's turning out okay, as it did for the guy who was moved from whatever it was to the UN ambassador. I forget his name. The signal after the Signal Gate chat fiasco. But that's what he's done with Kristi Noem. But do you, and feel free to disagree with me, but I think Trump knew about that ad campaign. And Randy, for you, you've been in a professional career, lawyer, Rhodes Scholar, high up in the CAGOP. You're an investor. I mean, you've gone through a whole lot of walks of life dealing, I'm assuming, with some powerful women. I grew up with three strong sisters, nonprofit world, and in the military. And one issue I have seen with women, there aren't a lot of them in the higher positions, so they are fiercely competitive just towards one another. As I said last week, if a man is a strong businessman like yourself, that guy he knows his stuff. If it's a woman, what a bleep. So we are judged differently. What I've noticed with women, sometimes they kind of overplay their hand because they know they got to work that much harder than the average man. Do you think? I think this more from that with Kristi Noem too. It was all about Kristi. What I'm trying to say is, she came up in this world of men. She had to be extra tough, much harder. But I believe something happened where she confused having to work and that much harder with "this is about me." Your thoughts on that, as well as for both of you guys? I think Trump knew about this ad campaign. Randy.
yeah, yes, this is so. And I know about Kristi Noem. The problem is the president can't be everywhere. He can't. And the president's the big daddy. He can't be everywhere. It's for his chief of staff and people under him, to take a secretary aside and say, "Hey, look, this is what the president feels. You gotta calm it down, right?
Right.
And I feel that the president's team did not do the job there, because this issue should not come up. And look, you got a lot of strong personalities. You got CEOs, you got leaders in their various fields. You have governors like what Christie was. Somebody needed to sit her down. Preferably, a high-powered woman herself needed to sit her down and just say, "Here's how we do things. You never, ever, ever embarrass the president." you
Right,
know, and
right.
and 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 so that's one thing. Look, as far as the president lied, I'm going to assume, and I trust him, and he didn't. But but at the same time, she put him in a position where he had to answer.
Right.
And what was he going to say? Yes, I did know. And because the president's, imagine the president is he's in charge of the administration, and he's trying to, help that administration. So she put him in a bad position. I mean, she could have had a better answer, but you know what? She should have been coached. If a Republican senator was going to say something to her in the old days, the Republican senator would have given her questions. I mean, look at what they did with Biden all the time. So Republicans should not be. I don't say John Kennedy's grandson, because he wasn't, and John Kennedy is a smart man, but in a Trump administration, Republicans shouldn't be, they shouldn't be asking questions like that unless they filter the answers, and unless they really on one page.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. But Randy, I also think this is the distinction between Republican Party. We're a party of many voices, and we're not afraid to battle one another. But those Democrats, they would have been protecting her. They would have circled the wagons, and there are times when we need to do that. Maybe not this case. And guys, honestly, that whole ad campaign, there was just one screw up. Because what we've been talking about is Kristi Noem and how she made herself look. But the reality, the screw up that really, I think, makes this a non-winnable situation. And they didn't talk about it much. They talked about her making it about
Yeah.
herself. But the real screw up was the no bid contract being given to her friend.
Exactly.
That was the one. So in a way, this could have been much worse. Gee, do you think Trump knew about this or not?
Um, I think he knew, but like Randy said, he's too busy. I mean, what's he going to do? Sit there and talk about all this stuff? So I'll just keep my answers short. But I think he knew, but in the end, like only the real political diehards and the crazies on Twitter X, they're the ones paying attention to this stuff, but the average person's not. So
Good point.
until Christie was threatening to be front page news day after
Yeah.
day after day for a while, and like you said, the Republicans turning on her saying, "Hey, it's time for you to get out." Um, I don't think he cared until she became the news, and it's like, okay, this is endangering the mission. Let's move on and put you in a different spot.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Now let's talk real quick. She did have presidential aspirations, and without this fiasco, she's looking at a campaign that could have said over 3 million illegals deported, which would have gone up. I should have made out a job. Zero border crossings for the last 11 months. Over 1,500 known terrorists arrested. Net negative migration for the first time since 1950. That is a resume no DHS director can sit there and say they have. Did she just tinkle this away in terms of any future political career for her? G.
I think she should run. I I think this is a strong record. Look, if having an affair is disqualification from being president, a lot of people have lied on their resume because a lot of people, I mean, even Trump himself, right? Clinton, and I'm sure there are many presidents that we can think of that have had affairs, but
JFK.
they don't admit it. So I don't want to say his name, but but
So
anyways,
hold
let's
on,
move
G.
on
So
from
so
that.
so, so
Yeah,
G, you're saying that her being
she
let go in
absolutely
this
can.
fashion doesn't hurt? All right, fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Randy, did you have sexual relations?
I don't know where they get the time, to be honest with you. I mean, can you imagine having two? I can't do with one enough, but look, G's right on here. You're right on. You combine what you just said plus with what you said before about Americans have short memories. Yeah, she'll be back. This is not literally her first rodeo. It won't be her last. And I'd be honest with you too. I think if she does a really smash up job in this other one for a year or two, she could be back into a better, even a better position. And if she wants to run for president, yeah, she can be there. But you are right about the woman factor. And it's something in our culture too. I mean, look, this is a country girl who likes to get dolled up. Truth, I've seen her; she's very dolled up. She likes to get the plastic surgery
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like all the
yeah,
Trump
yeah.
women get, and she's like in her mid 50s, I think, or mid 50s. She's a grandmother, and she looks pretty good, and I can see where some people have a problem with that. And you know what, like you said, some of these people have had affairs. Do we care anymore?
I know, and you can
I don't
thank
even know
Clinton
if
and
I
Trump
care.
for that. Nobody cares anymore.
Yeah,
Real quick on Kristi Noem. For me, it was like it was too much, but I gave her a pass because it was so early as DHS, but it was almost immediate. Remember her standing in front of in down in I'm trying to blank El Salvador with the rifle, and then or another time she had the tactical gear on. It's like that's when I realized this is about her, and she's using this to promote her. But I gave her a pass because it was still early. I'm like, somebody needs to
yeah,
talk to
yeah, yeah,
her.
yeah, 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 yeah. And but think about it too. She had the right image. Trump said to her, "Go do it."
Yeah,
He saw what she was doing. We were all cheering her on. Yeah, she's down there with she's in the prison saying, "Come on, move,"
yeah, yeah.
But I guess the point. I'm gonna go back. I think the president should not have done this. I think he jumped the gun too much. If you look at how he treated Marjorie Green, Marjorie Green was probably a different kettle of fish, but I don't think the president should have done this. I don't think he had to do it. I mean, I just don't think he had to do this, but he did, and he bumped her up supposedly, but I don't think he had to do it. I think he jumped the gun, and I'm surprised he jumped. I thought he was. That's it. I thought he was stronger than this. I don't. I you know, but there must have been. He must have been getting a lot of. Yeah, President Trump is tough. He truly is a tough human being. I don't think he would have. I don't know. I don't think by himself he would have done this. I think he got a lot of pressure internally, and I
You
think
missed our
somebody
last
was saying,
segment.
"Yeah,
I said the
is that
same
what you
thing
did?"
about some
Yeah,
of the candidates. I'm like, I think Trump has this is the first fire.
yeah,
Remember, we got the apprentice, the White House version, his
yeah,
first term,
yeah,
and he scaled it back. So he's older too.
yeah,
He's starting to look a little bit older at times
yeah,
because he's up all night.
yeah,
So I think maybe that's affecting it a little bit, not in a negative way, meaning he's just
yeah.
like, I don't want to fight this. I see what you're saying. We'll run it. But I don't think this is a downgrade. I think this whole cartel situation, Cuba, etc., she's going to be involved in that because of her new title, and that's going to come into play in the next couple of years. All right, let's move on to her replacement. And I have an issue with this, and I want you guys to tell me if I'm right or wrong, but it's a real big issue that I believe I have. So enter the new guy, a former cage fighter turned senator who's already got Trump's ear. Who is Markwayne Mullin really? He's an ex MMA fighter, rancher, and business owner. And I guess he alluded to he had some kind of drinking or some type of issue. And his wife, he was like, "Thank you for being my wife," because he this came up when he defended Pete Hegseth. He was the guy at the Senate hearing for Pete Hegseth when they were trying to blame him or call Pete Hegseth the drunk. He looked at them and goes, "How many of y'all come here drunk for a midnight vote?" And he was looking straight at who was the last Hillary's VP, the Virginia guy.
Tim Kaine.
He was looking right at Tim Kaine, who looked like he had gone through an all-night bender with his hair out wild. So that made his bones. He's the tough guy. Now he is Cherokee Nation, and guys, I gotta say this: Trump has a gay person, woman, people of color, now Native American. If he didn't, Trump is the most diverse president, I will say, when it comes to our cabinet and our higher ups. I have no bones in saying that. And now we get a Cherokee Nation. I had it rigged up the Paul Revere song, Cherokee, but copyright. But anyway, he is going to replace her. Now, my issue here is January 6th. And it's not an issue where I would go, you can't have the job because of this. But I also believe this guy's savvy enough. he will throw the constituent under the bus in lieu of the bigger political picture. He says, I was there. That cop had every right to shoot and kill Ashley Babbitt. But the video came out, and the video just completely contradicts what he has said, you know, and yet he still sticks to his gun. When I read that in my research, I'm like, that's a dangerous man. That is a man who will throw you under the bus for political reasons. He wanted to be on, he supported Trump. He was willing to throw these people under the bus to shift the blame to somebody else while defending Trump. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. But I can never trust a man like that. Because I'm like, the video refutes completely, and you're not coming back with, okay, I may have got it wrong. You're still stuck on your story. This isn't something that I'm going to go, you can't have this job. But that's a character of a man that bugs me. Am I reading too much into it? And be honest. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on that, because other people have brought up, a lot of hardcore MAGA conservative have brought up the J6 when they talked to. That's when I realized, oh, he's that guy. Gee, then we'll go to Randy.
No, I mean, okay, people get things wrong all the time, and maybe that's his viewpoint, right? What happened with Ashley Babbitt. But let's look at Trump's most trusted advisor right now. That's Marco Rubio, right? He's holding two very high positions. You could argue that he's the second most earth behind President Trump. And Marco Rubio had a lot of criticisms back in 2016 during the primary. And so you can make the argument, well, Trump overlooked all that. So
No, that's not
yeah,
the issue I'm bringing up. That's
no,
politics and politics. I'm talking about he threw an innocent conservative under the bus for the political. Like that's what I'm referring to.
no, I get that. But you know, I mean, Ashley's life is not minor, right? But in the big scheme of things,
No,
whether the police officer was justified or not, which I don't think he was, that's an opinion matter, right? That someone could see that and see a 6 or a 9, right? And you both could be right in different circumstances. So I don't view that as a traitorous type of thing where you can't trust this guy because he thought that. Look, he's going to be deporting illegal immigrants who shouldn't be here. And so that's a different job. And, you know, his opinion on what happened on J6 shouldn't matter.
and like I said, it doesn't. But it's a character flaw that I see that when
Sure.
there's a time to take a step back, you're not that type of person, and based on what I've seen on that incident, I mean, that's bad news for the illegal alien. You know, if he's going to throw Ashley Babbitt under the bus, you know, what's he going to do to them? Randy, your thoughts?
Yeah. So look, I agree with you about J6. I mean, I saw it when it was happening on TV, when it was live, and I saw Ashley Babbitt stand next to a bunch of cops, and she got shot. You know, but then again, I did go and I saw some other pictures where she was putting her face, breaking the glass, into the one chamber, putting her face in there, which was stupid. But do I think she should be shot? She should have been shot. No. And look, does it talk about his character? Yeah, I think it does. But look, I mean, I think what we got to focus on here too is, so Trump lost an ally in the Senate. I think that the governor from that state, though, gets to appoint. That there's no special election there, so the governor gets to appoint somebody. And so I was worried about losing an ally there. But look, this guy's an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a college degree. He's an MMA fighter. Does he have to have a college degree? I don't know. He's a businessman, MMA fighter. He's going to be pretty tough on the border, But looking back on Kristi Noem, I'll give her one thing: she was a governor.
Yes.
She knew how to play it in the public realm, And this guy's a senator. He's never been in that He's never been in that governing sort of realm. And a lot of times, senators, except for Rubio, I think Rubio's great. But let's wait and see. But imagine having him and Homan. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel for the legal lady. It's like, oh, well, you don't know what's coming, brother.
They're gonna get the crap kicked out of them with these guys. So, but look, it's something the president did. The president's not looking back. President, is keeping Kristi Noem around, but he's also warning his other people in the administration, don't mess with me, because I don't care who you are. If you embarrass me, if you put me on the spot, I'm going to get rid of you.
I agree. All right, guys, this decisive leadership change locks in accountability at the highest levels. while guaranteeing the record-breaking deportation machine stays fully operational in care of the next MMA fighter. With Mullin stepping into dry border security and Noem pivoting to cartel-focused hemisphere efforts, the administration maintains unbreakable momentum on immigration enforcement that directly protects American families and our sovereignty. All right, let's get to our big story, guys. And that is the U.S. decapitates Iran leadership, triggering jihad calls and domestic celebrations. Operation Epic Fury. Sounds like a made for TV movie. Launched February 28th this year by U.S. and Israeli forces, has struck over 1,700 to 2,000 targets, as of my research, probably much more by now, across Iran the past week, killing the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and senior officials, crippling missile capabilities, and prompting Mojtaba Khamenei's reported, actually, I believe it was confirmed, rapid election under IRGC pressure to be the new supreme leader. At the same time, Grand Ayatollahs issue fatwas mandating global jihad against America and Israel. And we kind of saw a piece of that in Texas earlier this week with a nut job. Iran's retaliatory missile barrages have plummeted sharply as launches and bunkers are destroyed, sparking street celebrations around the world by Iranians. Iranians who are rejecting regime symbols and praising Trump and, believe it or not, Israel amid pockets of mourning. Now, gee, did you think we were going to sit? Did you think this day would, Randy, you kind of pulled the cat out of the bag. Did you think this day would happen?
I did not. I did not think that it would ever be done. People say, well, we're declaring war on Iran. One, we're not declaring war, but two, a state of war has existed between us and Iran since 1979, since they took the hostages. And we just never had well, actually, we didn't have the power, the overwhelming power to make this basically a walk in the park, which is what it looks like right now. And this is early; it's only a 1 week or so in, uh, and a lot can happen the next few weeks, and this could spiral out of control. This is not a done deal, right? You're right; we did decapitate the heads of state there, but anything can happen. We don't know who's going to take over. So, did I think this day would come? No, but who would be the one to do it? It would be Trump, and I think we have in our arsenal a variety of weapons that, like we said, we don't know about, and we saw something that happened in Venezuela. Now we're seeing different things happen. I know we're going to get into the missiles going dark and all that, but we have an arsenal of weapons that we've been building up for the past 20 years. That's just like at another level, and Trump knew that we could just do this quickly and cleanly, and we'll see what happens here in the next few weeks.
All right. Randy, we all know, I don't know if the audience knows, Randy's a big supporter of President Trump and vocal about it. And God bless you. A lot of people in your position would not be. They'd be more neutral about it. But I love you for that. Remember how CNN tried to get and coax the Egyptians into thanking Obama for the Arab Spring? And the Egyptians literally said F you on TV. And CNN turned around and said, and there you have it, mom, or whatever. And my point being is, did you ever think that some people in Iran, Venezuela, these countries, they would sit there and be putting street signs with Donald Trump's names in Iran? A comedian in Venezuela saying the most popular names for babies in Venezuela is going to be Donaldo and Donalda. Did you? I mean, I would never have thought that. My point being is all the hatred for Trump here that is purely politically and ideologically based, and all the love that he's receiving from people who are actually oppressed. Thoughts on that as a Trump supporter?
Well, yeah, look, I think President Trump told us he was going to do this, and he did it. I mean, what's so good about it is where the hell were our leaders for the last 47 years on
Yeah.
Iran? President Trump just said, I don't care about protocol. I don't care about your freaking international norms, and let's be honest. this is Donald Trump and the Israelis. The Israelis are pretty focused here. This is Donald Trump and the Israelis. So when you put Donald Trump on top of the Israelis, you've got, you've got, targeted humongous firepower, and that's what we have now. We have, this fantastic firepower and grit and will and determination. And frankly, I'm sorry to say the word balls. This is a ballsy move, and he's just saying, we just sunk your main battleship. We sunk your main boat with our submarine. That hasn't been done since World War II.
Yeah.
And I was telling a friend of mine a couple of months ago when he was asking me about Venezuela. So why are we in Venezuela? And I said the real target in Venezuela is Cuba. That's the real target, and I was right. And the real target here in Iran are the Russians and the Chinese. That's
Yes.
truthfully the real target here. We want to say to them, go ahead. You want to do your stuff. We're gonna, once we finish with the Iranians, then we're gonna arm the Ukrainians even more. And you want to come in Eastern Europe? Come on. Imagine this. This is like, is this a precursor to World War III? I don't know. But this is like the Spanish Civil War, where the Germans were on one side, the communists were on the other, the Russians were on the other. But I would think Kim in North Korea, I would think the Chinese and the Russians are all rethinking some of their moves. I mean, I'm looking at what the
Okay, Randy,
Chinese.
I don't mean
Yeah,
to interrupt,
go,
but
go,
I
sorry,
want
sorry.
to. You brought up
Yeah,
China,
yeah,
and I meant to put that in my notes, and I didn't.
sorry, sorry.
So for the audience, China's been cut off with their oil from Venezuela and now Iran. What does this mean for China in the short term? Now they're going to be struggling immediately. This is not like, oh, in a couple months. They're going to feel the impact almost immediately. Does that make things a bit more scarier? War brings people together, and war creates jobs, uplifts everybody. I'm kind of what's the relationship? What's the next step for China and the U.S.? We meet with them next month, but what does this also mean for Taiwan? And I apologize, but I want to get your thoughts on that. And then
No, no, no. Gee, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. First you, then we'll go to
Oh,
G.
okay. Sorry.
You're the guest, not G.
No, sorry. No, sorry. Oh, Jay's always the guest. But So what I would say with China is and I spent 6 years in China working with Chinese companies actually on the inside. And the communist government only exists because they have improved the material well-being of the people. That's the only reason they exist. The Chinese people are almost like the Russian people, where they'll take a big, powerful person and they'll only agree to work with them when everything's getting better. When things start to get worse, the pressure's going to come, onto Xi. And Xi has been lying to his people. He's been saying, "Oh,
Oh yeah,
we're just focusing on the domestic economy." No, he's focused. He's got his worldwide plans. But what this does, this cuts off the Chinese tentacles for the worldwide conquest, which is what they were thinking.
exactly.
Hopefully, what this will do is they'll realize, they can't maintain these supply lines. If they're going to have, build up to take Taiwan and everything else. I mean, I think what this says is you're not going to have your communist members of OPEC anymore. Your pro-communist members of OPEC giving you oil. It's not going to work.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
we boycotted the Russians. We took care of the Venezuelans, and now we're taking care of the Iranians. And then where else are you going to go, China? So to me, it's going to force China to negotiate with us more.
Well, not to mention
And
the tariffs too. I mean, they've been
yeah,
hit with the tariffs too. I mean, that whole battle.
yeah, exactly. But if I was a Chinese, there's a reason why Xi is getting rid of some of his military advisors, because they're saying to him, because they're
Mhm.
military guys, they're saying to him, "What are you doing? We don't have the supply lines." And Xi's like, "No, no, we have to do this. Come after Taiwan now,
Yeah.
Xi. You don't have the oil. We'll destroy your supply lines. Our submarines will take out your ships. Your troops will be stuck in Taiwan, and then they'll be subject to our constant bombardment from our B-52s and B-1s and everything else. We will
Holy mackerel, Randy, you're going down a dark road. Yeah.
we will slaughter your troops." And then truthfully, but that's the Chinese are always 10 years ahead of us. They're 5 years ahead of the thinking. And this is what, you know, when they had people like Biden who they could predict what they're going to do. They can't predict what Donald Trump is going to do. I mean, and
Gotcha.
he's sending them off. He's like, I mean, these guys are probably going crazy right now, you
Yeah,
know.
I,
But
I
anyway,
understand. So, G, Red Storm Rising out of the way there with Randy, the scary thoughts. Give me your thoughts. I want one caveat. G has his own little Red Storm Rising, and when he talks about Cuba, how does all this affect Cuba? Cuba's been splintered. Like Randy said, Venezuela, Iran, is Cuba next to fall? And your thoughts on China as well?
Well, I mean, he's even talked about Cuba recently, saying we'd like a peaceful takeover, right? And so Trump is
Oh, well,
viewing
hold on,
this.
G. Let me set it up. The reason I asked you about Cuba, Cuba's now experiencing no lights, no electricity. They're feeling
Yeah,
the
right,
effects of
right,
the loss of the Venezuela oil for the
right,
island.
right.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. So that's why there would be a friendly takeover. The Cubans rise up and say, you know what, we're not a very strong country. And so Trump's looking at this as let's right the wrongs of the past 47 years and of the past, 66 years, right? When Castro took over Cuba, probably longer, 68 years. But he's saying, okay, let's get this world in a right spot. But Randy's absolutely right. Like, with Taiwan. Like now, and so are you, William. But now, China has to go. Okay, if we take Taiwan, what happens to our oil supply, and what does that mean for our economy? Oh man, the Americans have us like this right now. So there is that calculation. But here's the other part. Here's where I disagree with Randy. We've never had an official "we're going to protect Taiwan" policy at all costs, right? And even when Nixon went to China, there were some secret documents that were drawn up saying, okay, look, we agree with the one China policy, telling China, communist China, this, which means that they're not believing that Taiwan is the actual one China, right? So whatever has been the official policy, it's okay, well, we agree that if you take over Taiwan, we probably won't do anything. Now, that stands at odds with what we've done in the last 20, 30 years, where we built the Great Wall around China and the South China Sea, where we have a bunch of bases. So that shows that we would come to Taiwan's aid. But in the end, will we? Are we going to go fight a war against a 1.5 billion people population for a little island?
Let me
I'm not
toss
sure
this
we
in there.
will.
We don't recognize Taiwan still to this day formally
Right.
as its
Right.
own
Because of that.
country.
Yeah.
Right. All right, guys, real quick before we get into a couple other topics, keep this to 30 seconds. I want to show you this picture, and I call it useful idiots. Islam has when it took over, remember this? This is a famous picture. The story has proven to be not true about the first one's dead and the other one is revolutionaries. But the Islamists align themselves with the communists and the feminists. Isn't that? Aren't we seeing that similarity here today in
yeah,
America? And
yeah.
then they went from this to this. Are we seeing in America the useful idiot being brought to life again, as it happened in Iran? Gee,
Yeah, I watched this. Yes, uh, absolutely. So I watched this thing last night from Johnny Harris on YouTube called talking about fascism. Luckily, he wasn't. He showed a bunch of Trump stuff, but he wasn't calling Trump a fascist necessarily. But he was talking about how Mussolini and Hitler came to power, and how they came to power was that the non-fascists, right? The establishment viewed that the fascist groups would help them fight communism, right? And in that way, if they allied themselves with these guys, communists won't take over. The problem was these guys took over, the
yep.
fascists took over. So yeah, the every political movement, in this case the Islamicists, they will ally themselves until they have enough power, and then they get rid of their allies, right? So um, I just hope saner heads prevail this time around. Again, we don't know who's going to take over, but we
Right,
hope the
right.
people choose the right people. The people of Iran choose the right leaders for their country
Oh yeah, yeah,
that will
yeah,
take
yeah,
them
yeah,
towards
yeah.
a democracy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm thinking more along the lines of what's happening in this country. Useful idiots, the communists and the feminists who were all killed off or in prison after the Islamists took over. Uh,
Yeah.
I kind of see that same playbook happening here. They're coming over using our own laws against us. They're gathering the left together, the feminists, the young kids, etc., etc. And it's like that's what I see happening. Randy, your thoughts?
If it gets bad here, look at Europe. I mean, the thing about
Mhm.
America is we're all immigrants in Europe.
Randy, you're dark tonight. You're dark.
No. Well, but yeah, you're right. I mean, but I'm old enough to remember. I was a freshman in college when when the Ayatollah came in. I remember all those idiots in CBS, NBC, ABC, all saying, "Oh, it's such a great time for Iran. The religious people are going to take over. The Shah was so corrupt. America's bad." And then look what happened.
And they're right. The Shah became corrupt, but they didn't realize he may be corrupt. He was still the next best thing you had without you learn the hard way. All right, guys. So Iran's missile launch rate dropped nearly 86% over the last couple of days based off earlier reports. We are taking out their missile launchers, their mobile launchers as well. We have complete air supremacy over the skies. I'm waiting for leftists to go, that's so racist. You got air supremacists over there. So, given how fast Iran's supposedly fearsome missile machine collapsed, and I don't have the video, but there's a video showing one of their missiles, and then it just literally drops in Azerbaijan. It runs out of gas, given how fast Iran's supposedly fearsome missile machine collapsed once we actually hit it, did we overestimate Iran's capabilities out of fear and political cowardice? And Randy, you kind of alluded to Trump's the first president, take action. I see all this, and I'm like, we had feckless presidents up until Trump. Your thoughts?
Well, when I used to play football, we always used to, we used to always think the other side was bigger and stronger than we were, and we always played better against teams that we thought were better. So it was just something we did. So, but I hope we don't get cocky with this one. But I think the one thing that President Trump has to do is he has to finish the job. Just like in
Yes.
Venezuela, we got to finish it. We got to take these people out. It can't be like Iraq. Iraq was a joke, what we did. We just took out one guy and brought in somebody else. But in Iran, we have Western Iranians who want to go back. I think, and do we have the country build? Hopefully not as bad as Iraq, and hopefully the Iranians will do it themselves. But we have to do is disarm them, and disarm totally. Here's my one fear, though, and I hope I'm not right on this one. The one thing is the Iranians do have sleeper cells in the U.S. and in the West, and they're planning something. And the question will be is how does President Trump handle that? Does he, for example, I know he's offering some amnesties and that, but I think he needs to say openly, if you are a sleeper cell and you're going to do something, we will come down hard on you and your families. And
Exactly.
we will come down so hard. We're asking you for the sake of Iran, for the sake of Persia, your Persian culture. Please don't do this. We want you to build a new Iran. He just needs to keep saying that because Iranian people are ready. We get people coming out of here. I know an Iranian guy here in San Diego who's a former, uh, Secret Service and a former desert ops type guy who's ready to parachute in already. So I think he needs to disarm them, the current regime, and he needs to facilitate other people coming in. But do we need American boys on the ground? Maybe temporarily, but I don't think that's going to win it for us there. We have a favorable population coming outside of Iran who wants to go back.
I can actually see the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and Israel actually being the ones to go in and help them rebuild.
Yeah.
My big fear, and Trump kind of uh, put my fears to rest by saying he wants complete surrender, but that he thinks or somebody puts in his ear, oh, we can have a Venezuelan VP move here and somebody from that's already in power. I'm like, you're dealing with theocracies and people who want political power at a base corruption are two completely different worlds. What are your thoughts? Because it has come out that he may be looking at somebody from the power structure ready to take over Venezuela VP Delcy Rodriguez type play here. Your thoughts on that?
Well, if Trump accepts that, that's the problem, right?
Yes,
But will we
yes.
have a succession of mullahs come out say, I'm in charge now? Boom, explosion. Well, I'm in charge now. Boom, explosion. Well, I'm in charge. I mean, I can see that happening for a few weeks until whoever the guy, I can't remember his name, who's been on different TV shows, But you need to have a secular government. Look, I'm a conservative Christian guy.
Good
I
point.
don't think we need a theocracy here in America. I'm fine with a secular government and keep the separation of church and state, because we've talked about like differences between even Christian churches, and what if that guy tells me I have to do it this way? Like, oh my gosh. So, um, the fear I have now is the Kurds coming across, right, and they're bringing an army. I don't know what that means, because what do the Kurds want? And if that's backed by us or somehow encouraged by us, and then that leads to a massacre on either side, I mean that's just going to be a
It
disaster. And
it
I
depends
I
which
hope we don't
Kurds.
have boots on the ground, but I don't know how you put in the right ruler without boots on the ground. That is interesting.
Which
Uh,
goes to Randy's point. You gotta
yeah.
completely take them out, but then there's opens up many questions. It also depends what Kurds. There are secular Kurds, there are fundamentalist Kurds, there are different sects of Kurds. The Iranian Kurds there actually used to have briefly their own little country. They're the ones that are wanting to come over now. So it all depends. Kurds have always been betrayed by America. That's a downside. That's a true dark side of America. At the end of the day, it's always the Kurds being given up, when peace is made or we turn on them. So you're right, G. That is a big question mark. Now I want to get back here real quick just to show a couple of videos. And we already talked about it. These people are dancing in the street. Our whole main street. TDS is so strong in this country that the left is okay with this regime having killed up to 30, up to 90,000 people, depending on what report you want to believe. But this is what these people are doing at the fact that the Ayatollah is dead, and it's in honor of Trump. Iranian. Wow.
It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA.
Yeah, so I showed that one, but there's also videos. There's a video going around of this, and I don't understand that she's a young woman, wasn't alive, but at the end of the day, she's Iranian and it's her country. She's just bawling. You think somebody died in the family, but that's at the fact that he's dead. And here's another video here, and this one here is a little bit more important in the sense because these people still have family in Iran, and this was the female soccer team. You know, they did not sing the Iranian national anthem. I thought they would take their hijab off, but they have family still. Now, a lot of people are gonna go, "Oh, what's the big deal, William? I don't sing the national anthem." You don't sing the national anthem. You don't show support for your country. At times they will kill you. So that was a big political moment for even these women. So we're seeing all these celebrations. What's it going to take to get the American left to go, this is a good thing? Randy.
I don't know. To be honest with you, they don't make any sense to me. I mean, these are women who have been, just put down for so long, not being able it's weird when your grandmothers had the ability to be free and wear skirts and just dress, Western way, and you can't. I mean, so, you know, I don't, I frankly don't think the left is going to get on this bus. And then the question would be is, do they have to? I mean, the truth is the left hates us so much. They hate every single thing we do that I don't know. I mean, I don't know how voters, I don't know how Democrats, it has to be a Democrat. I don't know how Democrats, can put up with this from their party. I don't
Yeah,
get it.
I think
Yeah,
most people go to work and come home and they claim to be
yeah,
Democrats and don't realize what the Democrat Party has come to.
yeah.
G, I'm sure you've probably been mistaken as an Iranian here or there. Your thoughts?
Well, if you trace my ancestry back far enough, we
It's
share the
Persian.
same ancestry. Yeah, anything ending in the ANI, the last name, is from the same ancestry. But I did see on my feed, Instagram, that there were two anti-Trump Democrats now saying hashtag MAGA. You know what the difference there was? Their ancestry is Iranian.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get some Muslim
That
votes out of this.
Yeah, so a lot of Iranian Democrats, I think, will be voting for Republicans in the midterms because they're ecstatic. I was actually shocked to see that because I just don't even bring up politics at their house when I go there. I'm like, okay, I know not to talk to these guys,
Yeah.
and to see the Trump dance on her feet, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so surreal. So other than that, other than being an Iranian Democrat, you're not going to win them over.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
don't
yeah,
even try.
yeah. And now, guys, look at Jewish Americans. Donald Trump has saved Israel. He saved Israel a lot of hassle. He's worked with Israel. American Jews are just out to lunch. A lot of them. They just.
Yeah,
What's the
yeah.
problem? I don't get it.
Well, it's not just American Jews; it's American blacks, American Latinos, American Asians.
Yeah.
It's just I think, guys, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. It goes back to our education system. The Democrats have taken that over, and until Republicans, Randy, I'm gonna put you on the spot. You're part of the California. You used to be part of the California Republican Party. What's it going to take for the Republican Party to realize we don't have the money necessarily, but if we don't start putting and backing financially some of these school board candidates, nothing's going to change.
I agree. And look, in the Republican Party, over the last number of years, is especially an effort put forth by its former chair Sean Steele. Has really been backing these. And look, Harmeet Dillon for years has been working on a lot of these issues, and I think her firm, Dillon Law, actually did help. With some of the cases that have gone to the Supreme Court and that. So a lot of effort has has been going in here. But the truth of the matter is, it takes a lot of effort. People need to be brave in this community, and I mean in this state. The problem is we have a supermajority progressive Democratic, party who comes down hard on people who oppose it, and they can put forth the power of the state to go after people. And you get a lot of people are just afraid. People are afraid right now. I think they're afraid to say what they feel.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. In regard to the left, I think Libya epitomizes everything. You know, uh, let me play this real here. This is Nancy Pelosi being asked if Obama had the authority and did not need congressional approval to attack Libya. Now, because if they can, they're going to try to impeach Trump if they take over the House.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Over this. You watch. But this is Pelosi back in 2011, I want to say?
So, Madam Speaker, Madam Leader, you're saying that the president did not need authorization initially and still does not need any authorization from Congress on Libya?
Yes. Thank you all very much.
One word answer. Yes. Now they're all saying he doesn't have permission. I think that pretty much tells the tale. They are willing to lie to themselves however they can when it's not a D by the name. And when you add Trump in front of the R, it gets even worse. Now, guys, I do believe Trump has a time limit. If this starts, Trump, we got midterms coming up in 6-7 months. So there is a time limit on this. I want to show this poll here regarding that time limit and get your thoughts on it. We'll start with G. So G, what we're looking at is approve, disapprove, how long this military action can last. Days and weeks, hey, we're okay with that 76% approval. It gets into months, it goes down below 50% support. If this drags on years, the Republican Party is going to be voted out of power. So your thoughts on this poll, is that kind of how you see it in your mind?
Absolutely. I think the frequent bombings that are happening right now, that will last about 3 weeks. Then we're going to maintain air superiority until there's a government that's good for the Iranian people and the Middle East at large. So we'll still be bombing for months, but it's not going to be this hot version of it that we're seeing right now, where there's a bomb going off every few minutes or whatnot. But it will be okay. The Islamist government pokes their head out like whack-a-mole. That will occur for months, maybe even a couple years. So I don't think the people will have a problem with that, as long as the hot part of it, where you're bombing every minute, every day, is over by, let's say, the end of March, maybe end of April.
Randy, your thoughts on this?
Yes, no, I agree also, shock and awe right now. But I take it one step further too. I think what the president needs to do is he needs to show some benefits of this for the American people. And I think one ways to do that is to bring down the cost of gasoline, right now for the American people. I mean, if I was the and I know it's hard in California because of our taxes, but what I would do is to draw, to somehow utilize Iranian oil being sold, to us cheaply and the like. We need to show a benefit to the American people, and I think that is MAGA. I mean, MAGA, you know, I do agree with Tucker Carlson on some stuff. It's like we need to show that these wars have a benefit to the American people, and I do somehow agree too that we don't fight Israel's battles for them, but at the same time, Israel is an ally to us, and they're taking out the bad guys who could do stuff. But I just there's got to be he has to show this is not $3.5 billion a day or something with this. He has to show a direct benefit to the American people. With Venezuela, I think it's a little bit easier than
Yeah, but it takes a while. The gas is already down, but everything's up right now because of
yeah.
how the market works. But honestly, guys, they need to learn how to message this, because to me, this is why I'm supporting this. This is what I grew up as a military person. This is
Yeah.
what was always on my mind. Hamas,
Yeah.
Al Qaeda, Taliban,
Yeah.
Hezbollah, Houthis, they're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
This is
Exactly.
why this is going to bring peace to the whole region. I agree, Randy. They need to show something. I think that can be. I don't mean to sound political as
Yeah.
a consultant, but optics in messaging to show the American people. But in the
Yeah.
long term, you get peace in that region. Iran becomes a big commerce. People forget they were a regional power when it came to economics with the Shah in there. But to me, this is the most important. We've had over 1,000 dead soldiers. Who knows how many civilians throughout the world with all the bombings by this group?
Yeah.
In fact, the dredges were getting. And I'm sorry, I view the Ilhan Omars. Who's the other one? The Mamdani. Rashid Tlaib. Those are the scum of society that are using American law and our way of life to literally, I don't want to say infiltrate, that sounds too I Spy novel, but literally to spread anti-American hate and grow their base. And killing Iran off kind of helped stop the flow of those types of individuals. So to me, Randy, if we can figure out a way to message this is powerful, because but the problem, like G said earlier, we don't really a terrorist attack. 6 months later, we're on to the next thing, and it becomes a memory. Even 9/11, kids today, because they're not being taught that anymore in school in these leftist schools. But to me, that's why I'm glad we've attacked, and I think we've got to figure out a way to message that along with the oil. But I don't see the oil coming into play before the midterms. But over time, that cost can be factored in.
Yeah, but as you said though too, the president is very good with short term, with having justification short term. I agree. I think he needs to put into a policy now. He needs to, and I don't know if you guys see these, but I get like daily sort of talking points from the RNC as to stuff, as to how they're playing it, But I agree, and I hear different things. I hear the Republicans are very concerned about the midterms, because I don't know if you saw Congressman Darrell Issa is not running for his seat in San Diego County now. I mean, San Diego now. So,
oh really? No, I have not. That's
That's news to me.
Yeah. So ISA just came out today. We were watching it because I'm I'm involved in the city, in the county party also, and we were watching it. And so Jim Desmond is now going to be running for ISA's seat, and so ISA has just endorsed Jim Desmond. And then, so Desmond was going to run against Levin.
Right. But let me ask you this question, Randy. This is local politics, guys.
Yeah,
But
that's okay.
was this done to neuter Carl DeMaio? Because you know Carl DeMaio wants to run for that Congress seat.
Well, so, and I can't say too much. I can't say too much. I have to but no, Carl is still going to run for the assembly because Carl's very vested. You know, I mean, you saw with the voter ID. I mean, and you got
That just he just got to the audience the voter ID.
Yeah.
California's going to get that on the ballot, and
Also Prop 13.
Democrats don't want that.
Yeah,
but we got it.
Yeah.
Now it's up to the people.
Yeah. So Carl's, my understanding at least, Carl's staying, you know, in the state because today was the last day to file in California for any position. So just Jim Desmond is running for, you know, for ISIS seat, you know, for the change seat, and then Kurdian, who is a good guy who would.
We've had him on the show.
Yeah, Armin's a good guy. So Armin now running against Levin for Congress.
I saw his email.
That's
about an hour ago.
Yeah, I got to be honest, guys. I love Armin, but that may be. I think Armin has a great future, but I still view him in Double-A baseball, who needs to work his way through the process. This is going to the big show, I think, too quick. I hate to say it, guys, and I'm not saying anything I wouldn't tell him, but that to me sounds like a sacrificial lamb type move there. So, and I like Armin because he's got the credentials.
Yeah,
you know.
But ISA just came out today, and it's, you know, he had all this time to tell people what he was going to do, and he just came out.
He waited to the last minute. His ego.
Waited to the last minute.
That's an ego. That's an ego there.
You know, that's what happens with people in Congress too long. Sometimes they get this ego, and it's like it's them and it's not us. You know. So.
Oh yeah. So guys, real quick about the MAGA split. Tucker, Candace's, Megyn Kelly. They all talk about, oh, this is destroying MAGA. Here's the military action against Iran. Approval. 85% Republicans, which includes MAGA is not unto itself. We are Republicans. 85%. I think the number we have to work on are those independents. Real quick before we start to close the show out, G, your thoughts on the Republicans at 85%, and we're never going to switch to Dems in my eyes. So I think we got to focus on the independents. How do we get them?
Well, honestly, I'm surprised the Republicans are that high. I mean, I based on what I see on Twitter, most of Republicans are against this too. So no, I this is not surprising. Yes, the independents will switch. I think they will switch if everything turns out all right in Iran. So it just depends on what happens there in the next 2-3 months.
Randy G brought up a great point, which people just refuse to believe. In fact, I mentioned off air, remember Travis Allen, California gubernatorial candidate? He ran his whole campaign thinking social media was going to get him elected. X, Facebook, that's a small percentage of America compared to every day. So when I saw the 85% approval, I wasn't shocked. The influencers scared me on X, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't shocked. Any thoughts in your head on how we can flip some of these independents?
Yeah, and you know, look, I think it's G was saying here, independents are fickle, but I think the independents want to be on a winning side. I think the more Donald Trump is praised for this, the more it looks like it's going to be a success. You know, right now, I mean, it's still in the beginning phases. It still is. So I think they're going to flip because I think independents like a winner. And I don't ever see the Democrats flipping because they have told their people and people who listen to all their channels that Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. I just don't see them. I mean, we'll be lucky if we change that to instead of 90-10 to 80-10. But I don't see them. The progressives have such a hold on the communication to those people.
Yes, they do. That's the problem we face now. Social media is changing that. I don't know if you're aware, Randy, but when it came to the 2025 midterms and the shutdown, no mainstream media is dead. Yet 60% of Americans believe Republicans were responsible for the shutdown come voting time. And the reason I brought that up is a few years ago, and before the internet, would have been 98%, 99%. So we are making moves to change that, but the mainstream media still holds powerful sway. But what's worse, the indoctrination. All these kids coming out to vote, they're the ones who voted Mamdani in.
Yeah, you know, but think about it though. We need more Iranian Democrats to come out right now and to just say we are in favor of this. We need more, you know, we need more, you know, Israeli American or Jewish American, you know, Democrats to come out and say this. You know, I mean, we just do. I mean, people, Democrats listen to Democrats more than they listen to us. So
Oh, no, you're right. I tell that. I always sit
Yeah.
there and say, we want the best qualified person in that district. If it's a brown district, I'm not saying we have to have a brown
Yeah.
candidate,
Yeah.
but let's look for somebody from the district and not the anointed white guy living somewhere else to run.
Yeah.
And nothing against white guys, but let's start recruiting. Let's have our own little program. Final
Yeah.
question before I close this out. So as you guys know, Mojtaba, the son of the Khomeini, has been elected a new supreme leader. I'm trying to think, how do they say it? A pull. What's a pull on how long he lasts? Gee.
Maybe next Friday.
Yeah, I agree with you. I give him a week. I mean, why would you want that position?
Right. Okay, that's my second part of the question. And this sounds crazy, but do you think, because he's not really the type of candidate they would normally elect because of his background and his religious, or there's some conflict in there. What are the possibilities they want him as a top dog? Hey, here's an easy way to get rid of a potential threat to the power. Let's make him the supreme leader and let Israel take him out. Any thoughts of that speculatory comment I just made, Randy?
I think that's I think that's probably what they'll do, and the Israelis will do it.
Gee.
I view it more as the year of the five emperors in ancient Rome. I mean, they're the guys who are fighting for it, and then they're just killing each other because someone else gets it. But in this case, we're the ones doing the killing, or the Israelis.
That showed how much power the Praetorian Guards had. And for you all who don't understand, think of Maximus, a gladiator. Those were all the guards around the emperor, kind of like their secret service. They had a lot to do with those killings. All right, guys. Any final comments? I want to give the space here. Randy, any thoughts?
Well, yeah, no. I was going to say, gee, I just really like your analogy there, and that just should tell American kids. That's why you need to look at ancient history, because the lessons for tomorrow are actually, and today, are from what happened before. But the ability to quote, I mean, this is why our Civil War generals, looked at ancient Greece and ancient Rome and the like, because this is exactly the same stuff playing out with newer toys. It's the same stuff over and over again. But look, a lot of us never thought that this would happen in our time. I think the message Republicans have to say is the same thing. We never would have thought this would happen in our time. This is why you need Donald Trump in the office with a Republican Congress for 2 more years, because if not, we are going to go backwards.
Right.
He has made so much progress in these 1.5 years or 2 years. If not, we were going to go back to the horrible days of the Biden administration, where wars are going to be even worse, and we're going to be spending more money on wars. Donald Trump has a plan and is a man of action. That's what this world needs right now, not cowards to sit on the side and say, "Oh, let's let the international, institutions, deal with this," because they don't work.
Well, not to mention, it's usually the bad guys in charge at the UN of those of those projects. Gee, any final words?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is 4D chess, and we talked about it already. This is not only to prevent a mushroom cloud over Tel Aviv, but it's also to prevent an invasion of Taiwan. And there's a lot going on where Trump views that as a win-win-win-win. The main thing is, will democracy prevail in Iran? And we don't know the answer to that yet. The answer could be no, but we for sure hope the answer is yes. So we'll see.
For me, this marks a pivotal blow. 47 years of terror, 47 years of the same terrorist group under a different name, kind of like going out of business sale, then it just shows up again under a different name, same owner. We have the opportunity to rid the world of that terror, and that includes the tentacles worldwide. And nothing can really top that in creating peace in today's global environment. Trust me on that one, people. And more importantly, it'll bring stability to a region deep in history. Guys, as a Christian, I want to go to Israel and feel safe. As a historian who read all these, I don't want to say new age type books or stuff, but the ancient history, it was these theocracies that destroyed the museum in Iraq that house artifacts thousands of years old. It's deep in rich history. It's deep in culture, both from historical and evangelical purposes. It will bring peace to the region and open it up. And not only is that good for the Western world to learn about who and what and where we came from, but also for the Iranian people to become an economic power. Also for Saudi Arabia not to have to worry about Iran. Also for Israel, for every nation did not want to coexist with them, but wanted to destroy them. This could help bring peace. So what Donald Trump is doing is something that I want to grow old and be able to tell kids about. I saw it from the beginning of the end of the Shah to the end of the terror. With that, gentlemen, I believe that is our show for the night. We covered a lot of ground, from DHS palace intrigue and J6 receipts to Iran's regime getting rocked. Hit that like, subscribe, and follow button on YouTube and Rumble. Search for Grumblings Media and join our community where we actually push back. Share the show, drop a comment, and help us beat the algorithms that would love to bury voices like ours. Big thanks to my weekly panel, the G-Man. He is Indian. He is not Persian or Iranian like I joked about. To those who miss her, Ms. Annette Ross will be back next week. A big thank you to Randy Burholtz. It's been a long while, but we love having Randy on for bringing the heat and the honesty. If you listen close enough, you get a little bit not inside the closet. What's it saying? A little bit of the inside the weeds or in the weeds type comments as locals learned about Daryl Issa. Hey everybody, this is William Del Pilar, founder of Grumblings Media, and I want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our all-volunteer efforts at Grumblings Media, smash the subscribe button right here. 100% free, and please consume and share our great content. Click either one of these two boxes for more of our work.